This is On the Ice, presented by Independence Blue Cross, a weekly recap of your Philadelphia Flyers from blue line to blue line. Broadcasting live from Chickies and Pete's, tonight's show is brought to you by Han & Stone Spa, Pat Dion Beverages, The Capitol Grill, Chickies and Pete's, Payroll Service Solutions, and Independence Blue Cross. We now go live to Chickies and Pete's for On the Ice, presented by Independence Blue Cross. Now, here are your hosts, former Flyer Brad Marsh and Paul Jolovitz.
And welcome, everybody, to the beautiful Chickies and Pete's on Roosevelt Boulevard here in the great Northeast for Independence Blue Cross On the Ice. I'm Paul Jolovitz, along with former Flyers defenseman Brad Marsh. We'll introduce our guest in a quick second. Brad, you mentioned what a beautiful day it was outside. You got out and played some beach volleyball today?
Oh, I wish. I was looking for a swimming pool in the neighborhood there, but no, it's a damp cold. It's a damp cold out there. Give me snow anytime over this rain.
Not driving?
Doesn't matter.
Driving on ice?
Well, it's not ice.
He's a hockey player, right?
Snow's better. Snow's better.
You could have a swimming pool in your driveway. Another guy who made it down tonight in this wonderful gray Russia-like day is a guy who's been a hockey writer for a very long time. He's covered the Flyers basically forever, not all 50 years, but a significant portion of it, with the Allentown Morning Call, been with many papers in Bucks County. He's an author. He wrote a book about Chris Therien, which we'll talk about, entitled Road to Redemption, a great story of Chris and his battle with demons. He is a marathoner. He likes horse racing. Not sure if he likes cheese, but he likes a lot of other stuff. Wayne Fish, how are you, buddy?
Against a very good LA Kings team, quietly a good LA Kings team, because they haven't been real good the last number of years. But we played good from start to finish, and another overtime, another loss for the team. But we're working hard, Jolly. We're working hard.
Working hard is good. Getting that organization and mucking and grinding in the corners. I had a real question for you about this, Wayne. I could be right. I never played hockey at an NHL level, obviously, as anybody who knows me.
Did you play at any level?
Skated on a frozen pond a little bit, yeah.
Just wanted to make that clarification.
17 levels short of the NHL. When people talk about the talent on a hockey team, obviously any pro sports team, no matter who the coach is, and Tortorella's doing a great job, is really defined by their talent. You're never going to win a Stanley Cup with a talentless team. John Tortorella is driving them in great directions, but in overtime, 3-on-3, the more people you take off the ice, the more talent matters, the way I look at it. Brad, if you want to chime in, you can, but the Flyers really have trouble in overtime, and to me, that's where you see the talent gap. Almost every team in overtime skates circles around the Flyers. Is that a fair take?
I think it is to a degree. You have some guys who play the game. They're sort of risk takers. I mean, a Konechny, a D'Angelo, they're tremendous offensive talent. But on the other hand, if you go deep and you don't have somebody watching the back door, you get something like last night, which, to be honest, the D'Angelo felt that he had been illegally impeded, and so it became an odd man rush. And in 3-on-3 hockey, it's like pond hockey. You're going to score about 90% of the time. So I can't fault that there. My question to Tortorella would be, is there a way of practicing 3-on-3 once in a while in when you're just down the rink after practice, work on it for 5 minutes like you're foul shooting in basketball. But to be honest, if they had a few breaks in some of these overtimes, they'd be right at a playoff spot.
Brad, do you wish you guys had 3-on-3 when you played? Overtime?
Well, overtime came in. When did overtime come in?
05.
85.
Yeah,
like the shootout came in 05.
Yeah, but I don't know if it was 3-on-3 format, but
the overtime came in. Did we play 4-on-4 when overtime first came in?
I don't think so. 5-on-5.
It was 5-on-5 at the start.
But anyhow, I don't know. It's one of the new changes to the game and exciting changes to the game, although I think they have to tweak it because some of the overtimes are getting rather boring. Remember when the overtime, the 3-on-3 first came in, it was like wham, back and forth. Right. But now with all the coaches that we have now, they're strategizing in 3-on-3, and quite often they'll bring the puck back over the red line, back over the blue line. They change and then they rush, and the guy that had the puck past the blue line here, he makes the play. Then he changes, and it really slows down the real, slows down the 3-on-3, but it takes away what the 3-on-3 was meant to be.
Coaches always feel the need, Wayne, to coach, right?
Yeah, and there's actually a small movement underfoot to actually try to get rid of the shootout and go to a 10-minute overtime. And I think
David proposed that, didn't he?
There's been several people have, and I think the problem with that is the injury element, fatigue element of you're playing almost you could potentially be playing almost an extra half a period of hockey, and I think that at some point, how much is too much?
The thing is, though, is you got to. I understand the concept, Wayne. Sorry to interrupt, but you got to look at the players that will be playing those extra minutes, that 10-minute at 3-on-3.
Yeah.
Brad Marsh ain't going to be playing in a 3-on-3 in overtime because they want so somebody that plays 25 to 30 minutes a game, and you throw in an extra 10 minutes. All of a sudden, they're going every other shift. The skill players are going every other shift in the overtime. So, I don't know. The shootout is exciting, and I don't get the NHL. Like, when do the fans get exciting? When there's a hit, when there's a goal, of course, when there's a fight, and the shootout. They love the overtime. They love the shootout, and there's no hitting in the damn game anymore.
No, go ahead, Brad.
No, I was done. I think I made my point.
It's interesting because, Wayne, you've been through rules one after the other. Change this, you change that. Gary Bettman said there's no tanking. That toward Connor Bedard and many rule changes around the NHL. You've been around this game a long time. When did you start covering the Flyers? Tell everybody how you did that, how you came into hockey, and some of the rule changes that you don't understand and others that you like.
My first game was, believe it or not, 1972.
Wow.
And
51 years ago.
Yeah, quite a bit.
Jeez.
So in 1976, I inherited the beat, and at that time I had already covered the Soviet Army games, some of the big games, the playoff games.
What paper were you working
Bucks
on?
County Courier.
Way back
For a
in
long
70,
time,
72,
Exactly.
76.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yep.
So actually, I was in the Boston Bruins locker room the day that the Flyers won the Cup, and talked to Beth Whittlin, the coach, and Espo and Orr, and everybody had their heads down. But actually, I've read several places where the better stories are generated from the losing locker room. They're lamenting what they could have done. And the Flyers obviously were upset up the powerful Bruin team, and so you're trying to find out what went wrong. And but of course, as soon as that was over, I rushed out of the locker room, and Simone Nollet poured a beer over my head, so I felt like I had been indoctrinated.
One of them, yeah.
So question. Yeah. So as a player, you get your first goal, you save the puck. Like, do you have your first article somewhere?
Oh, sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
My mother was a librarian and kept all my my articles for like 10 years. They're stuck in big
Are they
envelopes.
in the Dewey Decimal System?
Oh, pretty much.
You used to write when people actually used the thing that I'm holding up here called a pen.
That's right.
Before a laptop or any name.
Paul, we were
for a
on manual typewriters the first
Wow.
2
So
years.
what was your first story?
my
NHL story,
My
first
first,
NHL
well, my
story.
first professional story was the Millrose games in New York. I covered the track meet
track.
at Madison
Yeah.
Square
Okay.
Garden. My first
Rod
pro.
Milburn?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Sprinter hurdler, right?
Yep.
My first pro Flyer game, I believe, was February of '72,
Yeah.
and I couldn't tell you 1 minute of it. What happened there?
Was Bernie a Flyer yet at that point? Was he traded for?
So you're pinning me down to these details now. This is a long time ago. I do
traded
know.
in '72. I know that.
Yeah. All I remember from that era was that Doug Favell was in goal the day that they lost in the last 4 seconds and missed the playoffs in 1972. And we walked into the locker room. Fred Shearer. In those days, the coach actually talked in the little hallway that went into the locker room,
Spectrum, yeah.
and he had a little office there. And he said, "Gentlemen, this is the last time you're going to see this scene." And so, from there, it just got better. The funny thing was, after the first Stanley Cup, I'm 23, 24 years old, and I'm thinking, wow, this is going to go on forever.
Yeah.
And they won the next year, and I thought, gee.
Like a player.
Yeah.
This is going to happen every year.
Well,
Yeah,
they went to the finals in '76, then again in '80 too. So
Yes.
it
Oh,
was
no, it was
very,
a
very
great
calm.
80
year.
also, not 82.
Yeah.
80
go.
also.
Brad, you
English
played
teacher.
a long time in this league. I am an English teacher. Did you ever have beat writers, various newspapers? There weren't internet services. Obviously, there weren't the amount of people covering a team as there are now from every media source. Do you ever have a beat writer that you did especially like, that you gave stuff to, or somebody that you didn't like that you would hold back from?
No, back in those days, you liked them all because they were part of the team. They traveled with the team, and quite often you were in the same watering hole after a game having a beer. There was a mutual respect, and if you saw me having a beer after the game, that didn't make the papers. That was just, there was a mutual respect, and we respected them and the job they had to do. If I played a bad game, it's his job to report it. But now the media, there's so many of them, they're so malicious. All the crap that's out there, and all these bloggers, oh, I'm a blogger, whoop-de-doo, what does that mean? And there's just, everything is malicious now, whereas back in the day, there was a mutual respect that each of us had a job to do.
As Andy Reid would say, Wayne, time's yours.
I have a story to tell about, real quick story about Brad. They used to, the beat writers used to write for something called Goal Magazine, which was before Flyer Magazine.
At the game.
At the game, and they would put a complimentary copy at each writer's desk the night of the game. So they came to me about 3 weeks before this particular event took place and said, would you do a big feature story on Mel Bridgman? And I said, sure, I'll be happy to do a story on Mel Bridgman. And the day that the story came out and the magazines were all sitting on the desk, the Flyers announced a trade with the Calgary Flames, and it's Mel Bridgman has left the building, and Brad Marsh is coming in.
Buried the
so
lead.
that story was dead in the water.
What did your mom do with that one?
That was the garbage can.
But another side story is back in the day when there was an actual ticket that went to the game and they had an actual game program. As a player, you were over the moon if your pitcher was on the season ticket.
Yeah.
And my mom still has, well, she's passed, but I've got all those tickets because she collected them all. But and then the next big one was if you were on the cover of the program. You remember the program?
Oh,
yeah. Say, oh, man alive, they're collector's items now. Well, every one that I was ever on, I've got it. And one of the coolest ones, and I should have dug it out and brought it, because Liberty to Liberty. And I quite often show it to people and so on and so on. But who wrote the story?
Wayne Fish.
You got it.
Wayne Fish is also a marathoner runner. You guys share that
I do
passion,
triathlon myself, but not anymore. I used to.
You ever compete one against each other?
Me too.
No.
We used to.
No. This is a pro athlete here.
Yeah. No,
but I've won my share of awards over the years. I'm still winning age group awards. I'm still doing
long distance running. What kind of awards?
Yeah, well, half marathon in San Diego. I finished second in the San Diego half marathon at age 65. I ran 143 half.
Wow,
which
is about a
fast.
Yeah, I was in a marathon in Dallas when I was 38, and I was winning with 3 miles to go. My transmission gone, and Rosie Ruiz was my mechanic that day.
There you go. A good reference, by the way.
26 miles is not for me. I'll tell you that. We got two great athletes here: Wayne Fish, Brad Marsh. For that Sports Saratoga, we're talking about beat writing, hockey, all kinds of stuff. No C with the Flyers. Scott Lawton has an A. We'll talk about Wayne and Brad about what that means to a hockey team. Lots of Flyer stuff here. You're listening to On the Ice, presented by Independence Blue Cross, live from Chicks and Pete's at beautiful Northeast on Roosevelt Boulevard, right here on 1490 WBCB. It's time now for the Independence Blue Cross Live Fearless Player of the Week. This week it's Cam York. Seems to be finding his way offensively, looking more and more natural on the ice every game. He's our Player of the Week. Remember to choose Independence Blue Cross today and begin to live fearless. We're living fearless with Wayne Fish and my co-host Brad Marsh, and we're back right after this.
Hi, it's Pete from Chicky and Pete's. It's all new and it's all for you. The heated deck at Chicky and Pete's on the Boulevard is now open. It's enclosed, heated, and perfect for the ultimate in-game experience or live music when the best local bands take the stage. Like LeComp, Fat Mez, or Jameson. Check our website for the band schedule. The heated deck at Chicky and Pete's on the Boulevard is now open every Thursday through Sunday. Chickies and Pete's.
At Independence Blue Cross, we believe in giving you the tools you need to pursue your healthiest life. From premiums as low as $0 per month To health discounts and cash rewards, it pays to have coverage with Independence. With the strongest network of doctors and hospitals in the region and free 24/7 virtual doctor visits, you can feel confident that quality care is always within reach. Explore your coverage options and enroll today at ibx.com.
Payroll Service Solutions was established in 2001 to cater to the payroll needs of small to medium-sized businesses. Payroll Service Solutions offers unparalleled customer service while they deliver a complete and accurate payroll. When calling Payroll Service Solutions, you will never be put into a voicemail or go through a series of prompts to get to a person. All customer service representatives are extensively trained to handle all of your payroll needs, therefore saving you time. They value each and every one of their clients. No account is too small. Call Payroll Service Solutions today at 1-866-PAY-EASY for a no-obligation review of your payroll needs. That number again is 1-866-PAYEASY. Payroll Service Solutions.
A flawless occasion begins at the Capitol Grill. From the moment you step into the Capitol Grill, located in the heart of Center City, the experience is one of comfortable elegance. Whether you're looking to host a private affair, a perfect lunch stop, or dinner destination, start your occasion at the Capitol Grill today. Visit thecapitolgrill.com or call 215-545-9588. That's 215-545-9588 for the Capitol Grill, Center City.
If you're looking for a stylish and sophisticated fine dining experience, visit your Eddie V's Prime Seafood restaurant near King of Prussia. Eddie V's Seafood features an abundant selection of fine wines and curated cocktails to complement exquisite steaks and seafood made from the highest quality ingredients. In the V Lounge, sip on imaginative handcrafted cocktails with attitude while enjoying signature appetizers. Conveniently located between I-276 and I-76 near the King of Prussia Mall. Call them today, 610-337-7823 to schedule your night out for Eddie V's Prime Seafood.
We now return to Chickies and Pete's for On the Ice, presented by Independence Blue Cross. Once again, here are your hosts, Paul Jolovitz and former Flyer Brad Marsh.
Having a great time at our favorite Chickies here on the Boulevard with Brad Marsh and Wayne Fish. Independence Blue Cross is On the Ice. It's now time for the Smart Stat of the Week, brought to you by Payroll Service Solutions. Call them today at 1-866-PAY-EASY. That's 1-866-PAY-EASY. This week it's the Flyers' improving penalty kill. Top 10 in the NHL since the turn of the year. We're at 85%. Went 3 games without giving up a power play goal before they gave one up last night. That was your Flyers' Smart Stat of the Week. Once again brought to you by Payroll Service Solutions. Call them today at 1-866-PAY-EASY for the smart choice in payroll services. Payroll Service Solutions, catering to small and medium-sized business to handle all of your payroll needs. Call them once again at 1-866-PAY-EASY. Flyers go to Minnesota tomorrow night, Winnipeg Saturday before the All-Star break, which happens every year, which reminds me of Wayne Fish and a point of controversy. Wayne's trying to start a huge Flyers fight, basically. Brad Marsh play with the 87 team. Wayne has a hot take that I think you're going to love. I think it's got some validity to it, sir. Go ahead.
I think that we have to show great respect for that 1974 team, Bob Clark, Bill Barber, Rick McLeish, right down the line.
Some guy, Bernie Perrant.
Well, I'm going to get to that.
Another co-host, yeah?
Yeah, I'm going to get to that. But I would contend that the 1986-87 team
with Mr.
Marsh on it was better. And I'll give you a couple of reasons why. Number one, they had a scoring machine like Tim Kerr, even though he had the shoulder injury at the end. He, in those 4 years, averaged 55 goals a season.
And 30-plus power play goals,
and
right?
30, he still holds a record. I looked it up, 31. So we're doing some research of a day on Travis Konechny, whether or not he can get to 50 goals. He'd be only the 7th player ever to do that for the Flyers.
50?
50.
24.
He had 24. He had 24 at the halfway point.
Okay.
And he only did it in 36 games that he played.
Okay.
So if he was on pace up until these last 5 games. But having said that, the Edmonton Oilers of the 84 to 88, that particular window, I would put up against any team I've ever seen.
I can't think of anybody that played for that
team. The Montreal Canadiens of yeah, right. only 10 Hall of Famers. The
10?
10.
Really? I can think of 7. I can't think of the others.
Well,
Gretzky, Coffey, Fuhr, Lowe, Curry, Anderson, Sather. Who else?
how many have you got so far?
7 or 8.
Okay, well, we'll go with 8.
Okay.
I'm off by. I'll go with 8. My point being that nobody could have got as close to the Flyers were leading 1-0 in Game 7 on a Murray Craven goal, and came. They were within an eyelash of winning that game, and what an amazing thing that would have been. Don't lament that too much, but like I said before. All due respect to the Boston Bruins that year, they only had 3 or 4 great players, and then not like the Edmonton Oilers. And
well, Mr. Marsh, what do you think about that?
Well, the thing is I would tend to agree. Like we had that 4-year block with Mike Keenan. Like
yes.
We were a young team in '84. We surprised the hockey world, and we just kept getting better and better and better. We had the unfortunate death of Pelly.
Yeah.
We overcame that. And like I said, I would agree, but they won the Stanley Cup and we didn't. So they always will have the trump card.
Bill Berkey with the Eagles once said to me, and many times since, that he would have rather never played in the Super Bowl than played in one and lost, because you think you're going to go back, then you don't, then it weighs on you. Lost 27-10 to the Raiders. Brad, you lost that game 3-1 in 1987, Game 7. I know what you're going to say, but dig deep inside and maybe you say something different. Maybe you won't. Would you rather have lost that game 9-0, where you're never going to think about it again? They were a better team. We got beat. Or do you have moments where you wake up, or during the middle of the day, one of those what-if moments that tends to drive you insane? Which way would you rather go?
Well, in '85, we lost the deciding game, which happened to be Game 5. Every game was very close, and the last Game 5 was the only one that got out of hand. I forget what the final score was in that 7-3.
Yeah, it's pretty high scoring.
High scoring, and both of them tick me off. Like, I don't. You lose by 1 goal or 10 goals.
Would you rather never have played in the Stanley Cup final?
Oh no, that's a crap. That's a bunch of bull.
Okay.
The object when you play any sports, in my opinion, but in this case, professional sports, the object is to win, and you work hard and you prepare yourself each and every game to win. Unfortunately, we fell short, and at that time, I forget how many other teams were in the league in '87, but we were the last 2 teams standing. And as a kid growing up in Canada, every moment of your road hockey life was Game 7 of Stanley Cup Finals. I got to play in it.
Yeah.
And whether we should have won, could have won, we really, yes, we had the lead in that game, Wayne, but once Edmonton was scared. They were nervous, they were uptight, and we needed to score again in the first period. We had a couple chances.
Big time chances.
But once they tied it up and once they took the lead, we really didn't get another sniff.
Right. Wayne, you've covered hockey a long time and other sports as well. Every sport has a championship. Every sport has a trophy. Eagles going to be playing for the Lombardi Trophy, but it's just a trophy. It's not engraved. It's not personalized. Is it a myth, or is there something truly beyond a normal championship trophy with the Stanley Cup? Every kid in Canada, Brad talks about it, dreams of winning the Stanley Cup. Nobody dreams of winning the Larry O'Brien Trophy in the NBA or whatever they call the Major League Baseball Trophy that the Phillies could have won. What is it about
a piece of metal? He called it
a piece of metal. Yeah, but what is it about the Stanley Cup that has this unbelievable aura over everybody that touches it or comes near it?
Every word that you've just said is completely true. That the heritage, first of all, comes from a country, its heritage is in Canada. It's not the national sport, by the way. Lacrosse is.
It's co-sports now.
Co-sport. But that said, you go all the way back to the early 20th century, and you see the legendary figures who won that cup and became national heroes, not just sports heroes, national heroes. We have 3 or 4 big sports in this. We have 4 major sports. Up there, that is the king, and always has been, and always, in my opinion, always will be. And so that's where the magic is. That's what makes that trophy special. And the fact that all that lore of having it at the bottom of Mario Lemieux's swimming pool, or taking it to the racetrack, and so the horse apparently did its business in it, or whatever stories you've heard.
I hate that.
I know.
Yeah,
well,
I hate
it's desecrating
because previously, like when the players didn't get the cup. I don't know exactly when that started,
Yeah.
and I have no problem with getting the cup. But when they, to me, disrespect the cup, there's no time for that.
True.
Like putting oats in it and letting a horse eat out of the damn thing, like that is wrong. I hate it, and to me, if it keeps up, they should take the privilege away.
I kind of share your
And
point of
there's
view.
been some Russians that take it over and they don't give it back, and it screws up the whole rotation for the rest of the team.
Yeah.
Brad, when you were growing up, Wayne talked about Canada is not really a one-sport country, but obviously one above the others. Did you have any sports heroes other than hockey players for any reason?
No, when I grew up, it was hockey. You know, and we are a one-sport nation. Yeah, we have the Blue Jays, who happen to beat the Phillies twice, and we have the we have the Raptors. I had to think about the bat. We had the Vancouver Grizzlies, but you don't get together with your buddies and go out and watch the baseball game. Yeah, they were excited when the Blue Jays won. Don't get me wrong, but
so are we.
The bottom line is we're a hockey nation, and hockey is first and center. When I grew up, you didn't play any other minor sports because they really weren't any other minor sports. And, you know, there was a little bit of soccer, but that was in the Italian community because the Italians were really good at soccer.
Yeah.
And we didn't venture into their neighborhood to play soccer. We played hockey.
All right, Wayne, you've covered this sport for a long time. Let's get to the Flyers. Some interesting things about this team that John Tortorella took over this year. One that's very interesting to me, and then maybe to Brad too, is the number, or the letters rather.
Yeah.
John Tortorella said, I only want one guy wearing a letter, and 46 games into the season, Scott Lawton is still the only guy that wears a letter. It's the A and not the C. Today there's an article in the paper that talked about how that might be advantageous, that other young guys are eligible or are able to speak up in the locker room and have voices. Brad could comment to this, obviously, whereas if you had a captain like Claude Giroux, people may defer. Where do you stand on this, Brad? Where do you stand on this with the leadership in the locker room? Is it something where somebody just comes out and wears a letter, or somebody just a personality? How's leadership defined to you guys? Brad?
I would
Wayne?
say this. I think it was a good concept when John came in because he didn't know the players. The players didn't know him. Cam Atkinson, we all thought was a natural fit because of the 6-year history back in Columbus. But when the fact that Atkinson, we kind of knew that this was going to be a bad thing, but it turned out to be, season ending. So right away, that goes out the window. I think the point that he's trying to make is I don't want to have to lean on one guy for leadership. I'd rather have 5 or 6 voices in there so that they complement each other, and there's not a feeling of, like with Giroux, Giroux was not a Chris Pronger. He was not a Bob Clark. He was not a captain that was going to get in your face and say, you're not doing this the right way. And I think that now you have Scott Lawton, who's a leader by example. He just goes out there and plays. He doesn't have to go up there and get in your face and say, you're not. Keith Primo is another good example. So my point being that this was good for this first year. I don't know if he's going to if he's back and names another captain next year, but for this year, I thought it was a good idea.
And Brad, you wore a C, you wore an A. If you want to take the other point of view, I mean, when you had a point to make, I know you can be an in-your-face kind of guy, which I think is great. Do you think it's the letter that makes the point, or the person that makes the point? How do you feel about the C and the A concept?
Well, you can't have a captain and an assistant just because it has been the history in all hockey. You just can't name them for the sake of naming them. And I've always said, and I've said it many times on the show, you look at any championship team, and yes, they have a captain and 2 assistants, but they also have 5 and 6 and 7 other players that could be captain or assistant captain. We do not have that luxury here in Philadelphia. And to Wayne's point, that's what I think he's trying to cultivate. He's giving all these young kids an opportunity. Yeah. And I don't know off the top of my head, Wayne, maybe you did, but you do. But if you look at some of these young players that we have, they were probably captains back in junior or back in college of their team. And when you have an old leadership group, Voracek and Giroux, and this isn't a knock against them, it's just that they were here for so long. The young kids don't, unless they're really special, they don't step up and say what they think in the dressing room. Players only meeting, well, it doesn't really go around too far if the old veterans who aren't buying into the process in the dressing room,
and
no one says anything.
I think that the players know that he is the de facto captain because of his
Scotty,
because of his pedigree, that he was the captain of the world junior team for Canada, and his nickname was Captain Canada. And so
nice nickname.
That was from early on, and you don't get that 40-goal type of player, and not a lot of captains are like that. But he's this quiet, understated, soft-spoken kind of guy that, again, puts it all on the line out there like a Clark. And so at the end of the day, it's a leadership that was a natural thing. In other words, if it wasn't going to be Atkinson, it was going to be Lawton. And as far as alternates go, Kevin Hayes, Provorov, they've been A's in the past. They already have held that letter, so no one has to. They don't have to sew it on your chest. They already know that they're captain material.
Speaking of Kevin Hayes, he'll be going to the All-Star game in Sunrise, Florida, the All-Star break after Saturday night's game. Travis Konechny isn't. No other Flyer is. We'll talk about that. One All-Star for the Flyers. Konechny should have been voted in my opinion. He wasn't. Talk about that. Wayne Fish on Independence Blue Cross is on the ice from Chickies and Pete's on the Boulevard in the Northeast. We love having you here. We'll be back right after this.
Hi, it's Pete from Chickie and Pete's. It's all new and it's all for you. The heated deck at Chickie and Pete's on the Boulevard is now open. It's enclosed, heated, and perfect for the ultimate in-game experience or live music when the best local bands take the stage. Like LeComp, Fat Mez, or Jameson. Check our website for the band schedule. The heated deck at Chickie and Pete's on the Boulevard is now open every Thursday through Sunday. Chickies and Pete's.
I'm always striving to live my healthiest life, so I need a health plan that has my back. With Independence Blue Cross, I get access to the largest network of doctors and hospitals in the region and free virtual doctor visits 24/7. Plus, with premiums as low as $0 per month, I can stay on top of my health and keep my budget in check. Independence has given me coverage I can count on, and they'll do the same for you. Explore your coverage options and enroll today at ibx.com.
Payroll Service Solutions was established in 2001 to cater to the payroll needs of small to medium-sized businesses. Payroll Service Solutions offers unparalleled customer service while they deliver a complete and accurate payroll. When calling Payroll Service Solutions, you will never be put into a voicemail or go through a series of prompts to get to a person. All customer service representatives are extensively trained to handle all of your payroll needs, therefore saving you time. They value each and every one of their clients. No account is too small. Call Payroll Service Solutions today at 1-866-PAY-EASY for a no-obligation review of your payroll needs. That number again is 1-866-PAYEASY. Payroll Service Solutions.
A flawless occasion begins at the Capitol Grill. From the moment you step into the Capitol Grill, located in the heart of Center City, the experience is one of comfortable elegance. Whether you're looking to host a private affair, a perfect lunch stop, or dinner destination, start your occasion at the Capitol Grill today. Visit thecapitolgrill.com or call 215-545-9588. That's 215-545-9588 for the Capitol Grill, Center City.
If you're looking for a stylish and sophisticated fine dining experience, visit your Eddie V's Prime Seafood restaurant near King of Prussia. Eddie V's Seafood features an abundant selection of fine wines and curated cocktails to complement exquisite steaks and seafood made from the highest quality ingredients. In the V Lounge, sip on imaginative handcrafted cocktails with attitude while enjoying signature appetizers. Conveniently located between I-276 and I-76 near the King of Prussia Mall. Call them today, 610-337-7823 to schedule your night out for Eddie V's Prime Seafood.
We now return to Chickies and Pete's for On the Ice, presented by Independence Blue Cross. Once again, here are your hosts, Paul Jolovitz and former Flyer Brad Marsh.
And our guest tonight is Wayne Fish, who wrote the book Road to Redemption about Chris Therien. Selling very well. We'll talk about that in a second. But first, Wayne, Flyers going on the All-Star break with everybody else, a little 10-day break. Following Saturday night's game, Kevin Hayes voted the All-Star team in his new position of left wing. Travis Konechny not named to the original bunch and not one of the 12 that were added to the team, which seems to me ridiculous. Now, the Flyers don't have a lot of name recognition guys. They're not a great team. You don't think of the Flyers, but to me, Travis Konechny simply got screwed here. Now he gets a 10-day break, which is good for him. But Brad, Konechny, obvious All-Star, or am I overdoing it?
Well, obvious All-Star just from the goals that he scored, and you know, and game in and game out, he's been one of our most consistent forwards.
He has improved his overall game
a lot.
I mean, he is more responsible, and he has to be because guys like Couturier and Atkinson aren't in the lineup, so he has to be a leading scorer, goal scorer,
The young guys have been forced to be better this year because of those guys.
But he cannot just be a one-end player. You can see it that he's got one eye over his shoulder, and that's what you have to do when you're playing a wing on a high-tech line is I've got to make sure that if my centerman is committed to like a forecheck to one side of the rink, I got to make sure that the guy isn't getting behind me on the back end.
No, I didn't really follow it. The league announced the initial All-Stars, and then
12 guys made it by fan voting,
So the league selected Hayes, correct?
Yep. Well, Wayne would know more. Was it just the league? Or?
I believe it's like a panel.
All right.
Yeah, a mixed panel.
All right. You were on a panel of one that wrote this wonderful book, Chris Therien, Road to Redemption, about Chris Therien's battles with demons and all kinds of other things, former Flyer defenseman. It's selling very well. Tell us about the book, anything you like, along with how to get it. Anything you like, Wayne, go ahead.
I think the first thing is, Paul, that it's a hockey book, but it's also a message book about someone who had a serious problem, an addiction, and dealt with it. It took him a long time to come to grips with the fact that he was flawed and that he had to do something about it. It took him over a decade, and it almost ruined his personal life, his family life, and
his life period, right?
Yeah, and eventually he came around and sought help through guys like Paul Holmgren, the general manager at the time, and now the redemption part is that not only did he seek help and get himself straightened out, but he has got himself involved in recovery centers and is helping other people, some of them ex-athletes, to get themselves out of that vicious cycle of dealing with life's problems through artificial means like alcohol or drugs. And that's what I'm most proud of in being affiliated with this. And Chris really bared his soul. We went over this a lot. We wrestled with how far are you going to go with this? And he said, everything. I'm going to tell it. I'm going to tell it all. And he also talks about his relationships with coaches, with other players. Some of it's good, some of it's not complimentary, and some of it, like I mentioned to you off air, we had to leave a couple of things out of the book because it got a little too personal, a little bit too graphic. And so at the end of the day, I think right now it's been number one for almost a month on Amazon U.S. sales and for sports hockey biographies. It's been on the top 3 in 2 different categories since October. Today is the 3-month anniversary, so we're real happy with the way it's going.
That's a great story and appreciate it, and good for you in doing it. I know you've written another book also with Sam Carchidi. Brad, I wanted to ask you, you've read books about your teammates and other things. You're obviously inside a locker room. You know things that we don't about stuff that happens that people may want to put in books and not want to put in books. Did you ever read a book and know a specific story about somebody that you thought, are they ever going to talk about this, and it's not in the book, and you go up to them and say, why didn't you put such and such in? In other words, you know where all the dirt and all the bodies are buried, right?
Well, I haven't really read any hockey books that have been written by teammates.
Okay.
Because back in our era, I guess none of us were smart enough to write a book. I don't know. But I've read a lot of sports books, but the vast majority of books that I've read are on coaches. And John Wooden book sticks out. It's a wonderful, wonderful book.
The best.
Then a book on Bobby Knight.
Yes.
It was a wonderful book. And then a writer by the name of John Feinstein.
Yep. Washington Post. Yep.
Yeah, he wrote several sports books, which I thought were good. The one season on the brink with
Yes.
about
Damon Bailey?
about Bobby Knight.
Well, it was about his recruitment of a kid named Damon Bailey.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, and then as a Good Walk Spoiled, and I'm really not a golfer, but I found the book that he wrote, A Good Walk Spoiled, fascinating. So, I mean, I enjoy reading sports books. I enjoy reading watching sports movies, but I really haven't picked up a book that a fellow athlete that I know has read, and it's the same as I don't know. I'd like to get your take on it. I can't stand the behind-the-scenes look where I see the coach talking to the players, because that should be private time. Because I always think the coach isn't going to say what he really wants to say to the players when the camera's there. But, you know, I talk to my sons. They love it, the NHL series that they do, and they love seeing the coach in the dress. I can't stand it because that's supposed to be our time.
Yeah.
Wayne, when you do a book like this, as Brad mentioned, how do you turn it from a hockey book where Joe Puck is going to read it to something where you want Joe Average to get the book? Obviously, you'd love to sell it to everybody on the planet Earth. But how do you turn it from a sports book into a general read, and what's the big factor in that?
The title tells a part of the story, Road to Redemption. So right off the bat, you're saying to yourself, okay, what does Road to Redemption mean? It means that there must have been something that had to be redeemed, that he started from scratch when you were 5 or 10 years old. Then you have adversity, you have problems in your life, and then you have to figure out a way to get those problems straightened out. You can go two ways. You can either go off the road or you can stay on the road and move ahead. So that was part of it. We talked about this a lot of getting Craig Berube involved with the forward, because Craig was one of the guys who helped him. And everybody in the business respects Craig Berube. I mean, it goes back to his days as a player, it goes back to his days as a Flyer assistant coach, and then winning the Stanley Cup. So I wanted credibility there. And the forward starts you right off with, we decided we were going to go with, instead of just starting off with, okay, I was born in Ottawa and moved on from there, we wanted to start off at the lowest point of his life, which was that he was being told by other people, get yourself straightened out, because now you're hurting other people, not just yourself. And so that was a key point. The hockey is interwoven in, because hockey up in that whole thing. Peer pressure, social pressure. Is getting hurt, getting stuck on opioids. So all that stuff is addressed in the book. And so to me, that's the overriding theme rather than just being a hockey book.
Brad, that brings up the point that I've always wondered about athletes. Did you ever have a teammate, without naming names obviously, that you thought needed some help for whatever and suggested to this person to go get it? If you did they get it? Did they not get it? But did you ever have someone that you knew was heading down the wrong road and tried to intervene in any way?
Nope.
Do you know of any?
I can honestly say that, and I hear all these stories about opiate addiction and cocaine. Cocaine is this and this and this. I look back, we drank a lot of beer. We drank a lot of beer. I had a few teammates that would then slide into drinking the hard liquor.
Okay.
But over all the teams, maybe my head was in the sand, but I was captain of each team I played for, so I knew most of the stuff that was going on. I really never really saw a drug addiction. I never saw people that took the opioids, took this, did this. I saw people that drank too much. But you could sweat beer out the next day. That's the old fallacy that way. You could sweat beer out. But, looking back over my career, I'm very involved with the NHL alumni. There's more problems with the younger alumni than there are the older alumni. I'm not saying there was no problems in my era. Don't get me wrong. But it wasn't as common as it seems to be now.
Well, here's something that I've always wondered about, which may or may not have anything to do with your guys' experience, but there's a guy named Jordan Tutu once that was a top draft choice in the league, played for a long time. Mm-hmm. And there's something about the Native American or Native Canadian, the Indian environment, that there's problems with alcohol apparently on the reservation a lot of times, and guys who come into the NHL and had this particular problem. Did you ever have one of those type of teammates who you knew was susceptible to something from the beginning, whether it was indigenous or societal or whatever? And have you heard about any of those people, Wayne? 'Cause it sounds like a
yeah.
real
I mean,
problem.
there are a few. I would say this: Reggie Leach is doing a great job.
Reggie Leach is one of them,
in the
yeah.
First Nation people.
Yeah.
He's reaching out or what's the term?
Intervening.
Intervening or interaction with young Native American and Native Canadian kids that are like impressionable ages from like 12 to 18, and telling them that, look, it's out there. If you get caught up in that whole thing, as I mentioned before, the social pressure, the peer pressure, and trying to be cool, I guess is one way of putting it, you've got to know, you've got to be more committed. Brad made himself into a triathlete, so you can see that that's the kind of commitment that he had. That's the kind of commitment that you need in playing sports like in the NHL. And these kids that are coming up now, I am so impressed because they don't get out of shape anymore. They stay with it. They take a couple of weeks off when the playoffs are over, and then they get right back into training. You
start talking about that, I'll kind of ignore certain people. Brad rode a bike across Canada. I drove across Conshohocken. All the way across Conshohocken from Fayette Street, Brad, to... How come I never get any credit for that?
You had it in easy gear, I guess.
There we are, first gear. We've got a lot of other stuff to talk about. Wayne and I both love Saratoga. Much more hockey to talk about. Sam Urson, he's in the minors. Why? He's 5-0. Felix Sandstrom, he had options left. No, Sam Urson did. That's where Sam Urson is. Carter Hart's the starter. We'll talk about it all when Independence Blue Cross is on the ice. Continues with Brad Marsh and Wayne Fish right after this. Final segment coming. Stay with us.
Hi, it's Pete from Chicky and Pete's. It's all new and it's all for you. The heated deck at Chicky and Pete's on the Boulevard is now open. It's enclosed, heated, and perfect for the ultimate in-game experience or live music when the best local bands take the stage. Like LeComte, Fat Mez, or Jameson. Check our website for the band schedule. The heated deck at Chicky and Pete's on the Boulevard is now open every Thursday through Sunday. Chickies and Pete's.
At Independence Blue Cross, we believe in giving you the tools you need to pursue your healthiest life. From premiums as low as $0 per month to health discounts and cash rewards, it pays to have coverage with Independence. With the strongest network of doctors and hospitals in the region and free 24/7 virtual doctor visits, you can feel confident that quality care is always within reach. Explore your coverage options and enroll today at ibx.com.
Payroll Service Solutions was established in 2001 to cater to the payroll needs of small to medium-sized businesses. Payroll Service Solutions offers unparalleled customer service while they deliver a complete and accurate payroll. When calling Payroll Service Solutions, you will never be put into a voicemail or go through a series of prompts to get to a person. All customer service representatives are extensively trained to handle all of your payroll needs, therefore saving you time. They value each and every one of their clients. No account is too small. Call Payroll Service Solutions today at 1-866-PAY-EASY for a no-obligation review of your payroll needs. That number again is 1-866-PAYEASY. Payroll Service Solutions.
A flawless occasion begins at the Capitol Grill. From the moment you step into the Capitol Grill, located in the heart of Center City, the experience is one of comfortable elegance. Whether you're looking to host a private affair, a perfect lunch stop, or dinner destination, start your occasion at the Capitol Grill today. Visit thecapitolgrill.com or call 215-545-9588. That's 215-545-9588 for the Capitol Grill, Center City.
If you're looking for a stylish and sophisticated fine dining experience, visit your Eddie V's Prime Seafood restaurant near King of Prussia. Eddie V's Seafood features an abundant selection of fine wines and curated cocktails to complement exquisite steaks and seafood made from the highest quality ingredients. In the V Lounge, sip on imaginative handcrafted cocktails with attitude while enjoying signature appetizers. Conveniently located between I-276 and I-76 near the King of Prussia Mall. Call them today, 610-337-7823 to schedule your night out for Eddie V's Prime Seafood.
We now return to Chickies and Pete's for On the Ice, presented by Independence Blue Cross. Once again, here are your hosts, Paul Jolovitz and former Flyer Brad Marsh.
We have a great time doing this show every week. We'll be here at Chickies and Pete's on Roosevelt Boulevard the next 2 weeks. Jim Jackson, the broadcaster, is our guest next week. Wayne Fish is our guest this week. Our co-host is Brad Marsh. Wayne just showed me a picture of him playing college hockey. He was not aware that you played. Why are we not in why are you not in Brad's position right now? Why were you not a 15-year NHLer?
I hate to tell you this, but I barely made it to the college team, and then eventually I became a pretty good player. But
where'd you play?
Colorado State.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you know that, Brad?
I do now.
You had Wayne as a practice partner at the Warriors rink one day, huh?
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say we have training camp each year for the Warriors to get ready for the Warrior Classic, and the one year that we did it, I thought I'd reach out to a couple media that had played hockey previously and come out and join in a practice. A funny story, the first year of the Ottawa Senators, 92-93, we were a terrible team, as you'll remember, Wayne. And when we went to Ottawa, we had a whole bunch of people, players at the camp. And the Ottawa Sun was one of the big newspapers in town. And Larry Skinner worked for the Ottawa Sun, but he played several years with the Colorado Rockies.
Right.
But he had been retired for a number of years, but he worked. And so as a promotion, Larry Skinner came to the Ottawa Senators training camp, and he played like every day. You know how he scrimmaged. He was on a team, scrimmage. Well, at the end of the camp, he was the leading scorer.
That is a good story.
Yeah.
You never know where you're going to get him from.
Yeah, but Wayne wasn't Larry Skinner.
And I'm not Wayne. Not me at all. Wayne, you cover this team, trade deadline coming up first week of March. Brad, Wayne, a lot of guys, people think, John Tortorella said he wants to spend his first year figuring out who should stay and who should be here, who shouldn't, whether it's a good enough player, maybe not his type of player. A lot of people say James Van Riemsdyk, an ideal rental for a team, could bring young people. Kevin Hayes, who's clashed a little bit with Tortorella. Ivan Provorov, who's had his problems on and off the ice. You see Chuck Fletcher making any deals to buy or sell, Wayne? Obviously, Flyers are 8 points out of a playoff spot now. They've been hot. You don't want to start thinking, all right, we need to buy to get squeezed in somehow and get whacked in the first round. How do you view the trade deadline?
I think that unless something drastic happens in the next 2 or 3 weeks, well, we got some time off here, but once play resumes and they played another 5 or 10 games, if they don't make another move, push like they just did, then they'll be sellers. And obviously trying to unload salary and getting talent back, that it's either like a Claude Giroux type trade for Owen Tippett, where you're giving up a 34-year-old player and getting back a 23-year-old and picking up some salary space.
He's playing well right now.
He's
very
playing well. Yeah. But my point is that the names that you just mentioned are, of the three, I would say that Provorov would be the one guy, if I were in Chuck Fletcher's shoes, that I would probably want to hang on to, because defensemen are so valuable in this league, and he is a workhorse.
And Tortorella goes from defense as his DNA as well, right?
I mean, the other night he blocked 8 shots, took one off the side of his head one night, gets shot in the foot, can barely walk, comes off, sits on the bench, doesn't go to the locker room, turns around and comes back out again.
Sounds like the Brad Marsh story.
He played 403 straight games. You know why he couldn't play the 404? COVID. Huh? That's the only reason why. He'd still have this, he would have broken Rod Brindamore's 484 game streak by now if not for COVID.
You never know the biggest problems of mice and men. Brad, were you ever dealt at the deadline, and if so, what's that like?
No, I was never traded at the deadline. I was traded. When Wayne Fish wrote that story, I guess they didn't like your article on Mel Bridgman, and they said, we better get rid of him so they won't publish it.
That did make the light of day, but it lasted about an hour.
Yeah, trade deadline moves, everybody thinks back to when the Islanders traded for Butch Goring, and Islanders were a great team in the early 80s, but they were missing something.
Yeah.
And
boy, did they find it with that deal. What a hell of a deal that was.
Yeah, and they got Butch Goring, and it worked. Yep. And boy, did it ever work. And so I don't know if people still think back, but for years and years and years, every GM was looking for that Butch Goring trade.
Yep.
But I think if you do the research or the homework on it, most deadline deals fail.
Yep.
And you got to be careful, because you just can't bring in somebody into your dressing room, especially if you are a contender already and you're looking for that missing piece. Right. That missing piece you may be in might be that round peg. You're trying to put it in a square hole. If he doesn't mesh with the team, he can ruin the team pretty damn quick.
I forgot why it was how many years ago, Wayne? Maybe 15. Either of you guys may come up with this. Jeremy Roenick got hurt the Monday night before the deadline or something, and the Flyers made a panic deal for Adam Oates where they traded half the team.
First, a second, and I believe a first, a second, and a third.
And Adam Oates was here for what, a half a year?
Yeah, exactly.
So you got to be careful, Brad. Like you said, those can blow up in your face.
And that's before the salary cap. Don't forget, the salary cap era changes a lot. The dynamic of how you're going to build a team a year from now, 3 years from now, 5 years from now. And the Flyers seem committed to developing this young talent. I know it sounds a little cliche, but at some point they haven't only been past the first round once in the last 10 years. So you have to look at it from that standpoint of the fan base is a little anxious, and so the media is a little anxious. Everybody's anxious to see that they get better.
All right, everybody's anxious. Meanwhile, everybody realizes John Tortorella is going to be back next year, and probably some after that. Is Chuck Fletcher going to be back next year, Wayne? If you were a betting man, and I think you are, and you were given even money on that bet and said make a bet one way or the other, which way do you bet?
There's two questions here. One is, will he be back, and should he be back?
Correct.
Let's divide those up.
Okay.
Should he be back? I'm going to say maybe. As for will he be back, I think that Dave Scott hasn't said a word in public for over a year to support him, and the silence is deafening. In other words, he's not being endorsed by the ownership. And when you don't get that
vote of confidence.
I mean, well, a vote of confidence, as you know, can blow up in your can blow up 9 times out of 10.
Yeah.
But the point I'm trying to make is he gave a pretty ringing endorsement at that January of 2022 press meeting. But the telling thing was, he said, when someone asked him that, he said, right now, Chuck's my guy. He didn't say Chuck's my guy. He said, right now, Chuck's my guy. And that's not what you want to hear from your employer. You want to hear Chuck's my guy, period. And so I think that the clock is ticking, though. You're right, that there's going to be, at some point, they're going to have to look at it hard. The difference is Ed Snyder's not here. If Ed Snyder was here, the fuse might already be lit. And
Brad, does a general manager sometimes, obviously everybody's different, everybody is their own human being, but does somebody who thinks they may have to make a deal to save their job try to terminate that huge Butch Goring Hail Mary deal? And what can you do to stop that if someone's just playing for their own skin? I'm not saying Chuck is or isn't, but is that a threat to a team of a general manager trying to make that big deal?
Well, I'm not so sure. Well, we're not in a position right now to make the big deal that's going to turn us around. Correct. Because we're so far off from being a Stanley Cup contender, and so unfortunately, when you're a coach or a GM, you're hired to be fired, and so Chuck is still putting the building blocks in place, in my opinion. 2 years ago, before COVID hit, or 3 years ago, we were the hottest team in the league. We were favored to win the Stanley Cup. We had some of the best young talent in the game. And then COVID hit in March of 20. Yep. But we were the hottest team. I forget what our stats were. The hottest team.
9 in a row until you lost to Boston on the last day before they shut it down.
Yeah, and so I don't know what happened over that time period. I think a lot of the blame shouldn't go to Chuck. It should go to Alain Vigneault. He lost the room. Yep. How does a coach that it was good in previous years, how does he lose the room like he lost the room? The GM doesn't lose the room. The coach loses the room, and I think he lost the room, and the players tanked. And back to your point, I'd trade Paul Robb in a minute.
Yeah.
He is not the player that he once was. It gets worse every year. Get rid of him.
We'll see, and obviously last week's not going to help.
Excuse me, let me say one thing to that.
It's got about a minute. Go ahead.
Okay, real quick. When they lost
Alice?
No, Matt.
You're not supposed to ever forget anything.
Niskanen.
I'm sorry.
I think Bobby Orr retired.
They lost Niskanen. That was a big hit for Provorov. And then Ellis getting hurt also hurt him too.
Yeah, but Brad is bothered by Provorov. I'm bothered by Matt Niskanen, who's a tremendous guy, but you would think that Bobby Orr left the Flyers. This Matt Niskanen thing is being such overblown.
Have you talked to that man?
Yeah, I've said
he's
hi
one
to
of the best hockey analysts. He should be on television.
He might be, but still, he's not the end all and be all. If you're Ivan Provorov, you got to learn to play with somebody else at some point. You can't just say Matt's gone, I'm done, right?
I think that losing Niskanen, I'm going to say it one more time. I think that losing him was a big part of why they fell off. The COVID break hurt them, but losing Niskanen hurt too.
All right, that'll be the last word for tonight. We've loved having you, Wayne Fish, tonight here at Chickies and Pete's on the Boulevard. Thanks for being with us. Everybody get the book. Chris Terrian, Road to Redemption. Wayne Fish from the Allentown Morning Call, all the Bucks County papers, Flyers beat writer for 51 years. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks, Paul. Appreciate it.
Brad, thanks so much.
Thank
See
you,
again.
sir.
Yep, thank you very much. Next week we'll have broadcaster Jim Jackson with us. Chris Sermer produced this fine program. Keith Noonan back at the station. Thanks for helping with the engineering. I'm Paul Jolovitz from Chickies and Pete's on the Boulevard in the Northeast. For Brad Marsh and Wayne Fish for the Independence Blue Cross on the Ice, saying good night, have a great week, and go Flyers.
You're listening to 1490 WBCB Levittown.